Hi, welcome back to my tier list series, and today we are tier listing all of series 6 of Doctor Who from 2011. Now, the eagle-eyed among you may notice that there is another little change to the tier list tiers, and that is in the Doctor Who category. When I was making these categories, I always knew I wanted a Doctor Who category, but I couldn't decide on whether to use the Dalek saying Doctor Who, which is what I eventually went for, or whether to use Dorian Maldavar saying Doctor Who, because I always think of him going Doctor Who. So yeah, I decided to use that one for this series just because that's where it comes from. Little change to the tier list, it will go back to normal next week. But for now, let's get started with series 6 and the first episode, The Impossible Astronaut. So this episode I gave a 5 and I really enjoy it. I think it's such an epic start to the season, and having a two-parter especially makes it even more special as a premiere episode. I think it's a really great introduction to the Silence as a species, not the order of the Silence, but the Silence, the species. I think it's a really great introduction to them and how Amy sees one, forgets instantly, sees it again, and sort of gets to grips with what's happening with the memory thing, taking the photo and everything. I think the way that's done is really quite good for allowing the audience to understand how they work. And honestly, they're such fascinating creatures and well designed. They look horrendously terrifying. So all around, I think the Silence are a great addition to Doctor Who. I just feel like it would have been nice to have some more stories with them as individual Silence in the future series, because we only really get them as part of the Order of the Silence or the Church of the Paper Mainframe later on. It's not really the Silence on their own, so I kind of feel like we could go to the planets that they came from and see that sort of thing. It just would have been quite interesting. One thing that always gets me about this episode though is that we see that the Doctor is a whole century older in this one than he was when we last saw him, and obviously that century happens during the course of this series, because by the end of the series he is that century older. But that means that there are a lot of adventures he went on without Amy and Rory. He would have lived without Amy and Rory for several decades at least. Probably the majority of the century he would have been on his own, or at least without Amy and Rory. We know from series 7, something that Amy says, I think in The Power of 3 she mentions it, that they've been with the Doctor on and off for about 10 years of their lives. I'm assuming that is counting from the 11th hour when Amy leaves to go with the Doctor, not from the 2 years prior to that. So if they've been with the Doctor for roughly 10 years by the end of their time with him, that means that the Doctor can't have gone off with them for much time over the course of this series outside of what we see. So I want to know what his adventures were outside of Amy and Rory. And I'm glad that Big Finish is starting to go into the 11th Doctor adventures and we're seeing more from him, even if it's not Matt Smith. But I want to know more. And I also want to know about Jim the fucking Fish, okay? Someone please tell me if he's in the River Song series, because I do finally have the Diary of River Song series, but I need to know if Jim the Fish is a part of it. Clearly it happened during the Matt Smith era, because one 11th Doctor knows about Jim the Fish and the other one doesn't. What happened with Jim the Fish? What is Jim the Fish? Who is Jim the Fish? Why is Jim the Fish? Anyway, this was a great start to the season and a really fun episode, and I'm going to kick this off by putting this into... You know what? I think I might actually be really nice at the start of this and put it into NewWho. This episode kicks off the whole mystery of the Impossible Astronaut, and whilst I'm not so keen on the Impossible Astronaut as a concept by the end of the series, we'll come to that, I do love the setup of it in this episode and the next episode, and I really love the whole concept of Amy and Rory knowing that the Doctor's going to die and having to keep it from him and all that that entails. I really like that. And the MVP for the episode is Canton Everett Delaware III. The next episode is Day of the Moon. So this one I also gave a 5 to, and I will say I was surprised at that because I don't have fond memories of this two-parter in general. Not that I didn't think I liked it, I did think I liked it, but I didn't realise how good it was until I've rewatched it a couple of times recently. And it is really good, I do think it's good. It's a really epic story. And I love also the ending of the last episode, the cliffhanger, wasn't resolved so very quickly in this one. And we've suddenly just moved on a month or so, and Amy and Rory and River are all being hunted down. The Doctor's in a little tiny cube prison. We have no idea what's going on, and it's all very mysterious and there's lots of questions and you're wondering what's happened. I just think it's a really great conclusion. And the cliffhanger of this episode, where we find out that this mysterious child was a Time Lord all along, still have issues with that bit as well, but we'll come to that. I just think it's really epic and really great and such an interesting way of starting a season. My only issue with this is that the Doctor's plan against the Silence, whilst brilliant and ingenious, very, very hypocritical, because he's basically just submitted a call for genocide on the Silence. And whilst it works and it saves the world, why is genocide always okay when the Doctor does it? but only that specific doctor. If a meta-crisis doctor does it, it's bad. If this doctor does it, it's fine. The real mainline doctor, if he commits genocide, it's fine. Why is that? Anyway, as for this episode, I think that it probably deserves to go... I think it probably deserves to go in NewWho again. I'm not going to lie to you, I just think this is a really great two-parter. It's not one I would have known that I'd put in NewWho, but I think it deserves it. And the MVP for this episode, and I cannot believe I'm saying it, is Richard Nixon. I'm as shocked as you are. But in this two-parter, the president gets him out of a lot of scrapes, so I feel like he deserved the MVP status. Just for that. Anytime the Doctor or Canton were in trouble with just Nixon walks out and hello, I'm the President of the United States, and it was all fine, so I feel like he deserves it. Though it is weird to me that the Doctor says in the previous episode that Nixon didn't do enough good stuff to combat the bad, but then he's absolutely fine with Winston Churchill and even calls him a friend. Next up is The Curse of the Black Spot. So this episode got a 3, and I think it's fine. I think it's a fine episode. I don't really have any issues with it as such, except I do, just like one little issue. So it all stems with the villain of the episode. I like the siren, I do. I love the design of the siren, especially with the sort of tealy colour scheme she's got going on. I really like the look of it. You know me, I love when Doctor Who takes a fantasy or supernatural creature and puts a sci-fi spin on it. I love that. Having the siren song being an aesthetic and having the siren itself as being a doctor type character, it makes sense. I like it. I can work with that. What I don't like is the fact that once Amy gives her consent for Rory, suddenly the siren's disappeared. Why didn't she just walk off and go to look at other patients? Why did she just disappear altogether? Girl, you have other patients to tend to. Other people have little cuts in their fingers which need tending to. Come on. Also, the ultimatum for Rory. I can't tell you the amount of times I've watched this episode. I still don't understand it. They say to Rory, or Rory sums up, that he can either leave right then and there and go back to drowning to death, or he stays there forever. I don't understand the ultimatum. I feel like there was more options there, but I must have missed something along the way. Only other note I have for this one really is Captain Avery. I absolutely love his lack of care about the TARDIS. He goes in, he does the whole, oh, you lied about how massive your ship is. And then the Doctor tries to explain that he won't understand all this. And he's like, no, that's a wheel, that's a compass, that's this. A ship's a ship, mate. So I like that bit. I do like those sort of scenes when the Doctor meets someone who's not impressed with the TARDIS. It's quite fun. So tiering this, I think I'm going to put this one into upgrade in progress. I don't really have many issues with it, to be honest. It's just I wish they'd done more with the siren at the end with regards to when they got rid of her. I feel like they could have just had her not completely disappear. I don't know. I just feel like it was odd. Other than that, I just find the episode fine. It's an enjoyable enough episode. There is no MVP because there's not many characters who aren't just cannon fodder for the siren, so I didn't really want to just give MVP to Henry Avery or his son. So yeah, no MVP for this episode. Next up is The Doctor's Wife. So this episode got a 4, and I know that people love this episode. I think it's a good episode, but it's not one that I would choose to put on necessarily. I don't much like the flirting between the Doctor and the TARDIS. I know some men love their vehicles, but I don't like the flirting between the Doctor and the TARDIS, really. It's odd to me. Either the TARDIS is alive or it's not. In the classic era, pretty sure it was just a machine. In the new era, it's a living creature, and that's fine. You grow it rather than build it. Okay, I can get on board with that. But the idea that it has a conscience and can talk to people, except it can't when it's in the box, just doesn't work for me because it just feels like such a lonely creature. And also, if it's alive, then that's really, really sad. So I don't like the thought of it. As great as the episode is overall, I do kind of wish the running down the corridors with Amy and Rory, that we had have seen more of the rooms. I just feel like there was a bit of missed opportunity there with regards to what we were seeing, because we just saw the same corridor over and over again from different angles. The only bit I like with that is when the lights went off but didn't go off, and then Amy sort of like had to follow Rory's voice, even though it wasn't Rory, and she sort of put her hand through the tentacle bits. That was quite a chilling moment. But other than that, I feel like we could have had some more from that. On the plus side, Saran Jones is absolutely fabulous in this episode, absolute top notch. I love her Idris, she's just brilliant. And the TARDIS's last words with the Doctor pleading and begging, it really hit me hard because you'd never see the Doctor pleading and begging and crying like that. You've seen the Doctor crying, you've seen him asking people to do things or to not do things, but you never see him crying and begging like that, and it was really sad. So I do think it was a well-made episode. I also kind of wish that Idris had have stayed as the TARDIS's official hologram and the Doctor could have talked to the TARDIS more, but whatever, I guess we can't do a big lore change. Another one. Tiering this though, I think I'm going to put this into fantastic. As I say, it's not an episode I would choose to put on, but I very much enjoy it when it is on, and I'm absolutely fine with it. I think it does deserve fantastic status. Once again, there is no MVP for this episode because there weren't many characters in it, and the people who were in it, you had uncle and auntie, nephew, Idris, that was about it, and I don't really feel right about picking any of those out as an MVP, so no MVP. Next up is the Rebel Flesh. So this episode got a 4, and I really like this one. I think it's a really interesting concept where, similar to Midnight, you've got people at their worst because they are lashing out, because they are scared, and they're in a contained place. Midnight obviously was in a capsule of sorts. This one had a bigger castle to deal with, but it was still contained. They couldn't get off of the island where the castle was. Well, monastery. But they couldn't get off the island, so I do like that. I think it's very, very interesting when those sort of stories happen. And it comes with a moral question, and you know I love my ones with moral dilemmas in them. The gangers I thought looked really cool. I just think that the makeup on the gangers looked really interesting, and it was a really nice way of doing it where people did look like they were made of plasticine, and it looks really interesting. And the scene with Flesh Jennifer when she's like banging her chest saying I'm me, 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 that had the colour change where her colouring changed between being the sort of plasticky fleshy colour to her real colouring. I think that was a really interesting way of showing her inner turmoil and just giving us a hint of how the flesh works, really. Speaking of Jennifer, Rory shows again what an absolute king he is, going to help her no matter what. She has just tried to punch him and whatnot and gone all creepy and weird, and he's still like, no, I'm going to help you because I see you need help. I see you're struggling. I see you need help. I'm going to help you. We love Rory. King Rory. The only weird thing about this is the Doctor telling Amy to breathe. He knows that she's a flesh duplicate. Okay, got that. How does he know that the real Amy is definitely pregnant and giving birth at this exact moment? I don't get that. And also, how does he know that the flesh version of Amy is Amy's real consciousness? I have questions which weren't necessarily answered in these episodes. Tiering this though, I think I'm gonna pop it into upgrade in progress. I do think it's really good and I do enjoy these episodes, but something about it is not fantastic. I don't know how to say this. I don't really know what I'm feeling. All I know is that I feel it. So I'm going to put it into upgrade in progress. I don't think it's quite fantastic, but it is a good episode and I do like it. And the MVP for the episode is the Flesh Miranda Cleaves. Next up is the Almost People. So this episode also got a 4, and I like the end to the story, especially with the cliffhanger at the end leading into the mid-season finale. I think I've said this word too many times, but it was epic. I do love that ending, and the Doctor sort of telling Rory to back away and Amy saying, Doctor, you better know what the fuck you're on about because I'm really scared right now. And then her just like melting in front of us. It was insane. I loved it. And obviously we have a flesh duplicate Doctor in this one, which I absolutely love. It was really brilliant seeing the fleshy Doctor and the real Doctor working together, and you don't know who's who. And even when you're watching it back, I still go, well, which one's the real one? When do they swap shoes? Because there's a moment when the Doctor's in the corridor, and obviously Amy has spoken to the real Doctor in the corridor because he said later on that he knows he's going to die. And the flesh Doctor didn't know that. But how did he feel the question of why so much more strongly than the flesh duplicate Doctor? It doesn't make sense. I don't understand that. Also, I have a question about how the flesh make clothing, because does that mean that they're all naked technically? How does it make the clothing? I understand the flesh stuff making flesh, like skin and bone, I can understand that. Making fabrics and clothing, I don't understand that one. I feel like they should have to be putting on clothes or something. I feel like it's weird that they can just come out with clothes on. It's also weird to me that the flesh version of Jennifer was just evil, because I understand that the two sets of people, the human people and the flesh people, are both going through the same event but in a slightly different way. So it makes sense to me that some people had different reactions. Like Jimmy, for instance, Mark Bonner's character. One Jimmy was much more reluctant to join the us versus them bit until the end, whereas the other Jimmy was very much, okay, it's us versus them, because they had different experiences. They're experiencing the same event but in a different way, so it's different experiences, and that worked across the board. Miranda Cleaves is another one. The original Miranda was very much brutal and cruel with the duplicates, but the flesh Miranda was much more understanding of the situation. So I do like that, how it was all different between them, but I don't understand why Jennifer was evil, because the flesh Jennifer was just evil. She created a duplicate of herself just purely to kill it, to trick Rory. But it's like, well, that's evil. She's saying that the flesh people deserve human rights, effectively, which they do. They're real, they're living, they're breathing. But then she's creating someone just to kill them. Like, she's just gone nuts and evil. And that bit doesn't make sense to me. Just one final thing on this episode is right at the beginning, when the flesh doctor is struggling with all the memories from the regenerations. I just like that. It's something that you wouldn't really necessarily think about, but then when someone puts it in front of you, you're like, oh yeah, of course, because the flesh duplicate is programmed with the memories of the original person, but that's like for a human mind with a human lifespan. But this flesh duplicate here is suddenly being programmed with 1,000 years of memories. So that would take a toll on it, and it does make sense as well, especially with the fact that the doctors have slightly different personalities as well with each incarnation. So I really like that little detail. Tiering this one, I think I'm going to put it next to the Rebel Flesh in Upgrade in Progress. And the MVP for the episode is Jimmy Wicks. I just love the fact that as he's dying, he tells the duplicate Jimmy to be a dad to his son, to just take his place. He's just like, yeah, my son needs a dad, just do it. I love him. Next up is A Good Man Goes to War. So this episode got a 5, and I do really enjoy the episode. I think that it would have been better as a finale, but it's a really good episode and it's really brilliantly done. My issue though is that all the characters that we meet, other than River really, are all new characters to us. They're not really many characters that the Doctor has known throughout his life. Dorian Maldovar talks about how loads of people owe the Doctor a debt and how the Doctor's making an army. We don't know any of these people. Even Dorian Maldovar, we don't know that he's met the Doctor before. The Paternoster Gang are introduced in this episode, which I constantly forget this is where they're introduced, but I fucking love the Paternoster Gang. I love them, so I'm happy to see them every time. Can we talk about King Rory on the cyber ship? Because what an epic cold open. The best cold open in the history of Doctor Who, I swear. Oh, it was beautiful. It was wonderful. Would you like me to repeat the question? Oh, Rory, you absolute king. I have a lot of notes on this one, so I'm going to try and limit what I say on this. But I do want to say that Moffat loves his poems. I didn't realise until this particular rewatch just how many poems and little nursery rhymes are in this series and the last series and possibly the next series. The Matt Smith era of Doctor Who has so many poems. Just so many. So many. The episode is obviously really, really sad with regards to the baby, because there's a bait and switch that they think they've saved the day and then turns out they haven't, and I don't quite understand what the point of all of that was with the monk coming back and whatnot when they've already gotten away with it, so why bother? But Amy obviously has a flesh duplicate baby, and it's a really heartbreaking scene when she just sees her baby just crumble into flesh stuff on her, and she's like, my baby's gone again, and it's so heartbreaking to watch, and her pain is so evident, and I really wish it wasn't completely brushed over in the next episode. The River reveal as well is really brilliantly done and really sad as well, and I like how it links into the Doctor's wife, because Idris mentions about the river in the forest, so it does link in as well with the previous episodes. But overall it's a really great reveal. I just wish that I just kind of I'm iffy on the whole fact of River being Amy and Rory's child, because they sort of go into the whole, oh yeah, the Doctor will find your daughter and you'll see her again, all of that, because it makes it sound like they're going to be able to raise her, and they're not going to be able to raise her because River's already been raised. And no, Amy and Rory raising Mels as children themselves does not count as raising her, especially since she was probably older than them by that point. One little thing is the Doctor speaking baby, I hate. I've always hated the Doctor speaking baby. The Doctor speaking baby, horse, dinosaur, I don't like any of that. Even the Minotaur thing, when the TARDIS doesn't just translate it, I don't like it, okay? Either everyone can understand it or no one can. That's what I prefer. I don't like it when the Doctor can speak baby or dinosaur or horse or anything like that. It's just really annoying. And my final thing is Okay, it's a note that I don't really need to say, but I'm going to anyway. Why does the Doctor have a cot in the TARDIS? Because he says it's his cot, he says it's his, but it can't be his, because the Doctor left Gallifrey when he was over 200 years old. He left with his granddaughter Susan. They left in a hurry. They did not have time to grab family belongings and special possessions, okay? And why would he even grab his own cot in the first place? His children were all on Gallifrey as adults at the time. His granddaughter Susan was with him. She was a teenager, but she doesn't need a cot. So why did the Doctor have a cot in the first place? Why? He wouldn't need his own cot, and considering Moffat has this storyline of the Doctor being a lonely, sad little child, I don't believe he'd have a cot anyway. Not like that, not one that's special to him anyway. So basically, the cot can't be his, it can't be his children, can't be his grandchildren's. So what's the cot about? Why is the cot there? Doesn't make any sense to me. And it comes back in a later episode, I think in a Clara episode, you sort of see it in the foreground of a shot. I don't understand the cot thing. Where is the cot from? Why is the cot there? Anyway, that doesn't matter. The episode's really great and I really do like it, and I wish it had been an actual finale rather than a mid-season finale. But I'm going to place this into NewWho. I think it's a great finale, a great end to the River Song storyline of who is she. Even if I don't necessarily like the outcome of that, I do love how they did it. And the MVP is Lorna Bucket. Next up is Let's Kill Hitler. So this episode got a 3, and I want to start by mentioning Amy and Rory raising Mel's as children themselves does not count as raising her. Again, she was older than them by that point anyway, so it doesn't count on multiple levels. And on top of all that, this episode completely just bypasses all pain and trauma that Amy and Rory have suffered at the loss of their child. Amy has been kidnapped, didn't know she was pregnant until she was giving birth. Whatever they did to her at Demon's Run, she can't give birth again, she can never conceive again, and we know that in the later season. And they know who their child is, but they never get to see their child again. Their baby is gone. As Amy says, I think in the finale, they know their baby is fine and well and safe, but they'll never actually get to raise her. They'll never see her again as a baby or as a child. They'll never have that with her. They lost out on her entire life. I'm sorry, but Stephen Moffat giving these characters this horrifying storyline and then completely brushing aside all of that trauma and pain that they suffered does not sit right with me. So that is a big issue with this episode, is it just bypasses all of that. And I think Stephen Moffat even said in an interview somewhere that he realised that he'd sort of written himself into a hole with that one and just thought, I'll just skip some months and just skip the pain bit because I don't want to write that. Fair enough, but don't put yourself in the hole in the first place. Also, with regards to the writing, River is not a psychopath. River Song is not even close to a psychopath. Maybe she could be a sociopath, but she's not a psychopath. I'm sorry. I'm so sick of TV and film calling people psychopaths and sociopaths when they're not. When they're not even close to that. Having a penchant for murder because you're a trained assassin does not make you a psychopath. And also, River's not like that. She's never been just, let's just kill for fun. And also, let's be real, psychopaths are more likely to be CEOs of major corporations than they are to be serial killers. I'm so sick of this narrative that TV and film keep giving. And this episode, and I think a couple of others, constantly say that River's a psychopath and raising a perfect psychopath and all this. It's like, no, she's not a psychopath. Stop saying that. And in this episode, she falls in love with the Doctor in this one episode. She meets him and falls in love with him in this one single episode and gives up all of her regenerations so that he can live again. Tell me how that makes her a psychopath in any sort of way. Tell me how that's even close to being a psychopath when she has just met this man and is willing to give up everything that she has to save him. Because she was saying about how is it worth it and all of this. That's empathy. That's clear empathy that she's showing. A lot of empathy. You would have to have a lot of empathy to give up your life to save someone else. Especially when you don't even know them. River's not a psychopath and I'm sick of the writing saying she is. I also don't like that I saw it first in this episode, but I don't know if it happens earlier and I didn't notice it. The Doctor asks Rory for permission to hug Amy and Rory grants it, and I don't like that. I don't like that. They're friends. Just hug. And asking Rory for permission rather than Amy, I don't like that. I love Rory. We know I love King Rory, but I don't like this. No. Let's end on something I do like. I like how the TARDIS interface, as the Doctor has been poisoned and is trying to survive, I like how the TARDIS interface goes through the old RTD1 companions before going to Amelia, because I like when the show admits that it is a long-running show. It's not just the incumbent Doctor, it's all of them, which is why I like that in The End of Time, when David Tennant's Doctor goes through and revisits his past companions, whilst we may only see the RTD1 companions, it is canon that he actually went back and saw all of his companions from previous eras as well. So I do like when the show admits to the longevity of it and shows past companions as well as new ones. Not that there are any other new ones he could show. So I like that bit. Not so keen on the episode though, and I'm going to put it into Wibbly Wobbly. I don't think it's terrible. I did originally have this down as 2, but I changed it to a 3 on my rewatch. I don't think it's terrible. I just don't really think much of it. And there is no MVP for this one either because I just couldn't find anyone I cared enough about. Sorry. Next up is Night Terrors. Now this episode got a 4 and that was a struggle for me because I was so close to giving it a 5. So close to giving it a 5. I actually really love this episode. I think it's so creepy and terrifying. The peg dolls gave me nightmares for weeks and I was, 15, 16 at this point when I was watching this for the first time? The peg dolls are terrifying. And the TikTok rhyme used in it is really creepy as well. It's just, there's so much in this episode that I absolutely love. Including the writing as well between the Doctor and Alex Thompson, the father. Especially in the scene where they're talking about whether to open the cupboard or not. And the Doctor's saying, no, we can't do that. What are you saying? Well, we can't do that. And Alex goes, no, we can't do that. And then the Doctor goes, right, it's settled. We're opening the cupboard. And I was like, what? I love that. And also before that, when the Doctor says some random stuff about space, and Alex just goes, you're not from social services, are you? I love it. I really love this episode. I can't actually deny it. I love this episode. My issue with it is the child. The child who plays George. He's absolutely adorable, but he's not very believable. It's the way he acts, the way he says the lines. It takes me out every single time. So it would have been a 5 if not for the child who plays George. And I feel really horrible saying that, but he's not a child anymore, so I feel like I'm okay to criticise. Either way, this episode is definitely going into fantastic. All of that, and I didn't even mention the creepy dollhouse thing. It was a great mystery. And the MVP is Alex Thompson. Next up is The Girl Who Waited. This one got a 4, and I fully wholeheartedly believe this should have been called Rory's Choice. Making it all about Amy again makes Rory seem like a side character rather than a companion, and he is a companion. He's a full-time companion, and people should give him the respect that deserves. This episode should have been called Rory's Choice to mirror Amy's choice from the last series, and this choice is much more of a bigger choice. You know, this is a real choice that affects them in real life. It's a real thing, and it's Rory's decision. The Doctor even says it's your choice in the episode. It should have been called Rory's Choice. The age up makeup on Karen Gillan looks amazing. I don't have any problems with that. I think that looks really good on her. They could have probably put some more grey streaks in her hair though. Grey up the hair a little bit. It's been 36 years. And she definitely did not get her hair dyed in a salon in that place. What she also couldn't have done in that place is learn how to make a sonic probe and learn how to reprogram the interface and all sorts. I don't understand this. Amy has never been shown to have an aptitude for technology or to be a wizard with technology or to just have any kind of genius level intellect. So how she would just be able to figure this out and make a sonic probe with her mobile phone, I might add, and she reprogrammed the interface and all sorts. While she's running from the handbot, she couldn't exactly studied, not to that level. I don't understand that at all. And speaking of Amy, I'm sorry, Rory waited for her for 2,000 years all alone as a piece of fucking plastic. Amy couldn't do 36 years without moaning at Rory for leaving her behind and without basically losing all hope and respect and love for Rory and the Doctor. Granted, she didn't exactly lose all love for them, but she said that she did. And even when she finally does decide to help, she says she's going to go with them. And then she's like, oh yeah, but I'll just go travelling, it's fine. So she clearly doesn't love Rory enough to want to be with him anymore. I'm sorry, Amy does not deserve Rory. I said it, I don't care. This is a really great episode for their relationship though, because it does show just how much Rory loves Amy, and it's just got so many scenes in there between Amy and Rory that are just so wonderful. Especially the last scene outside the TARDIS. It's just heartbreaking when the older Amy says, I don't care, I'll rip time apart, I will come through that door if you unlock it. There's so many great scenes between them. And Rory especially is just... it's heartbreaking to watch him have to go through all this. Anyway, tiering this, I'm going to put it into upgrade in progress. Honestly, it's not an episode that I would choose to put on, and it's not one that I actually enjoy watching all that much overall, mainly because of the whole Amy Rory thing with the 2,000 years. I will forever defend Rory Williams, but Amy, she reminds me of Rose, and we know that as much as I loved Rose, I'm not defending her poor choices, and neither will I do that for Amy. As there are only 3 characters in this whole episode, there is no MVP because they're all the Doctor and the companions, so I can't use any of them. No MVP for this episode. Next up is the God Complex. So this episode got a 5 and I unapologetically love it. I think it's a fabulous episode, a brilliant concept, the whole Hotel California vibes and all the fears in the rooms, and it's just such a brilliant concept and an amazing episode, and I really love how it's done. And it's another fantasy creature with a sci-fi twist. Can we all just agree though that Joe's room is the scariest one? The one with all the Slappy from Goosebumps dummies everywhere. That's clearly the scariest one. Just saying. The scene with the Doctor and Amy where they're in her room and he has to make her lose faith in him so that she can survive. I really loved that. It's so sad and wonderful. And it's exactly what the Doctor did when he was the 7th Doctor with Ace in The Curse of Fenric. He did the exact same thing then, except people criticise him for that, even though he was saving the world. And here he's saving Amy and people don't criticise him for it. It's necessary both times. I think it's kind of double standards on the fandom, that one, not gonna lie. But I love how he does that because it's just so sad and wonderful. And obviously Amy does go straight back to just believing in him completely afterwards, but also the Doctor just drops her off. He drops her and Rory off home, and I think that's where it should have ended. I honestly think this should have been their final full-time episode. They should have been in the next couple of episodes as they were, up to the Christmas special, and that should have been their final appearance. But this should have been their last full-time episode as companions, because this was a perfect ending for them, and I loved it. Especially with the fact that Rory said, well, where's he going, what's he doing? And Amy says, he's saving us. It's such a beautiful, powerful ending for them as companions, and I would have loved that to have been the ending rather than what we got. Anyway, this episode I'm going to put into... Fuck it, I'm putting this into NewWho. I'm very happy today, apparently. And the MVP is Rita Jalal. She should have been a companion. She'd have been terrific. Next up is closing time. What was that I was saying about being happy today? This episode got a 2. Whilst I don't think it's terrible, I don't like it. So it's a 2. Once again, we have the Doctor speaking baby and the whole Stormageddon nonsense, and I fucking hate that. I fucking hate it. I really, really do. It's so stupid and I hate it. To be honest, there are so many good little moments in this episode with the Doctor and Craig that I really enjoyed, but the overall episode just isn't good. And the whole Stormageddon nonsense and the Cybermen being defeated with the power of love is just not very good. I don't like it. And it's just weird. And I constantly forget about the really stupid ending with those 3 kids watching the Doctor when they're just outside playing with a ball and they all just turn in unison and stop playing and stare at this crazy man who's just walked past them for no reason. Like, why are you staring at him? Why do they care? Why are they noticing anything? Why is he walking up to them and saying, hello, I'm the Doctor, and blah, blah, blah. Like, why? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work for me, and it just feels weird and out of place and bizarre and terrible. I always forget about that ending until it happens. I'm like, ugh, every time. One of the good things about this episode is Linda Barron, who was one of the workers in the shop, and she was in 2 classic serials, one of them being The Gunfighters, way back in the 1st Doctor era, and the other one was Enlightenment in the 5th Doctor era. Both of those serials are brilliant stories, and I love them and recommend them to everybody. But yeah, she was in both of those, and it's a shame that her Doctor Who journey ends with this travesty. One final thing about this one is obviously the very end has the scene with River, which is a fine scene, except that this is where River's story stops making any kind of sense to me. See, I love River Song and her story. I think it's a beautiful love story with the Doctor. I think it's a wonderful timey-wimey thing with her and the Doctor going on, but this is where it stops making sense. So she was taken as a baby by the Silence. Okay. She was programmed as a child to kill the Doctor. Okay. As Mel/River in Let's Go Hitler, she did try and kill the Doctor. Okay. So why are the Silence still following her? Why are they still doing this? Why would they program her to kill the Doctor if they knew that she wasn't going to do it then and there, and they just needed her there? And also the spacesuit, we know from the Impossible Astronaut, walks on its own. It walks on its own, it does what it needs to. We find out in the next episode that it moves on its own and shoots on its own. It does not need someone in the suit. So why did they even need River Song in the first place? Why did they need Melody Pond? Why did they need to create themselves a Time Lord or a semi-Time Lord? Why did they need to do that? Why do they need River? Why do they need her specifically? Why do they need anyone? It just stops making any kind of sense at this point. And this is what I don't like. Because I don't like when you have something wonderful and then it just stops making any kind of sense. And also, back in Let's Go Hitler, she knew that she was programmed to kill the Doctor. She knew that that was her mission, was to kill the Doctor. But suddenly now she's forgotten all about that, and she doesn't even know who Madame Kavarian or the Silence are. She doesn't know anything about it. She doesn't remember any of it. Madame Kavarian says that they've done so much to her head that, yeah, she doesn't remember, but she clearly remembered something in Let's Go Hitler because she knew she had to kill the Doctor. And the Doctor knew that she was programmed to kill him, and they even talked about it. So it just stops making any kind of sense, and I don't like that. Oh, it really upsets me because River's story was perfect and now it's a complete fucking mess. And it means that Amy and Rory were put through all that trauma that Stephen Moffat decided to just skip over for no reason, because it was unnecessary. It wasn't even necessary to the story. The plot would have still happened without Amy even getting pregnant. So I don't understand. Anyway, back to closing time. This episode I'm going to put into... I'm going to put it in Scar Sewers. I was debating putting it into Doctor Who, but the fact of the matter is it isn't a good episode, so I'm putting it in Scar Sewers. And the MVP is Shona. She just felt like a really great colleague. Great colleague to have. So, Shona. Next up is the Wedding of River song. So this episode got a 3, and it was an absolute mess of a finale episode. Absolute mess. Just absolute mess. I've never known a finale so messy. Up to this point anyway. And I'm not going to lie to you, by this point in the series, I constantly forget about the astronaut storyline. Because that's the first 2 episodes and a big 2-parter premiere, I constantly forget that's the storyline for the series, where it's like, oh, who's the astronaut and why they're killing the doctor? I completely forget about that. You have the big 2-part premiere, you have the big mid-season finale, then you have this. And it just feels tacked on at the end to try and tie up loose ends. And it should be 2 parts. This episode should be a 2-parter because there's just so much in there. It all feels normally paced. And then suddenly you've got 10 minutes left and everything happens. And I'm just like, wait, hold on, what? When I was watching this episode, I paused it at one point to grab a drink and I saw that it was 10 minutes left. And I'm like, but he's only just got to there. How are we going to do everything in 10 minutes? Yeah, it was terrible. And the fact that all they want you to do is tell the doctor he's loved. Okay, you could have just told him that. Did you need to break all of time? It's just... I just have many issues with this episode. I have defended this episode in the past. I've really defended this episode because I don't think it's as bad as people say. But when I'm reviewing it in this way, yes, it is as bad as people say. And I have to say, not only does River's story not make sense anymore, but neither does the Order of the Silence and the question, the oldest question in the universe, hidden in plain sight. Because why does Doctor Who even matter? Why does it matter? It's not the oldest question in the universe, because in universe, it doesn't matter, okay? The Doctor's name has never been a big deal. It's just been that he just doesn't say his name. His name is the Doctor now, that's it. So why does it matter now so much? The whole password for Gallifrey thing is next series, and the Doctor doesn't even know about that yet. He doesn't even know about Gallifrey still being there. He doesn't know about any of that yet, so... why? And hidden in plain sight, it's not hidden in plain sight. It's only hidden in plain sight for the audience, for us. It's a great reveal of, oh my god, it's the title of the show. But in universe, it makes no sense. This makes no sense. I mean, it feels like one of those things that should be really, really clever. It's like, oh my god, how clever is that? Genius move, Moffat. But no, it makes no sense. It's not clever, it's just stupid. What the hell? We've never been given any reason why the Doctor's name is so important in the universe. Because people know his name. The Master would know his name. The Doctor's parents, whoever they would be, they'd know his name. Susan would know his name. Other Time Lords would know his name. Apparently the fucking Time War history book that shouldn't exist, we'll come to that when I discuss Series 7, that has his name in it, which means his name is known. River knows his name as well. Forgot that one. River knows his name, which means he has said it out loud before. She said that she made him tell her, which means she knows his name because he physically said it. And we know that she says it in the next series as well. So why does his name mean so much? Why must that question never be answered? I have no fucking clue about any of this. I really feel like this is such a stupid mystery and such a stupid question, and it doesn't make any sense. I don't like the fact that his name suddenly means something huge and we're not even told why or what. Because again, it can't be anything to do with the next series. Otherwise, even he would be like, well, why does that matter? I can't. The whole episode hinges on that question and I can't. Also, River's storyline stops making sense again in this episode. So this is like day 2 of her knowing the Doctor, personally, like being with him. Day 1 was Let's Kill Hitler, when she met him the first time, when she suddenly fell in love with him immediately in that episode. And then this episode, they get married, and this is pretty darn soon after she met him in Let's Kill Hitler, with regards to them actually knowing each other. Every time we've seen River previously, she's been married to the Doctor already and she knows everything and she just can't tell him. So she got married to him after 2 days of actually being with him. What? Their love story was epic and timeless and wonderful. And now you're telling me that she met him and then married him. And when she says, I can't let you die without knowing you are loved and by no one more than me. Girl, you met him 24 hours ago. What? I can't deal with this. I can't. It's so fucking stupid. It really is. Anyway, I don't care about the rest of the episode. This is... I can't go into the rest of the episode. It's just so stupid, really. And I'm debating putting this into Skaro Sewers, to be honest, because it really is an absolute mess and has two massive storylines made completely nonsensical now. However, I'm going to be very, very generous on this episode and put it into Doctor Who instead. Because I often forget this one exists. This is not a finale that I recall. I don't remember what happens in it when I think about it. I don't remember that it exists. If you ask me this finale for Series 6, I'd probably say A Good Man Goes to War, because that feels like an epic finale. This doesn't. This feels like a mess. This feels like a complete and utter mess. As I've said, I have defended this episode for years, and now I feel like I'm a complete nutcase because what the fuck is this? Once again, there is no MVP because I just couldn't be bothered to think of one for this one, I'm not gonna lie to you. There were many, many characters in this. Most of them were characters we already knew or met before. I didn't care about any of them. It was just such a weird, nonsensical, stupid episode. I don't like it. So no MVP. And this series was starting off so well. And finally, we have The Doctor, The Widow and The Wardrobe. This episode got a 3, and I think, you know what, it's actually fairly fine. I don't hate it. I know other people berate this one, but I don't think there's much wrong with it, to be honest. I think it's fine. My main issue is that the start of the episode is a really interesting scene, when I probably would have preferred to watch that adventure over what we got. Wouldn't have been a Christmassy one, but I would have liked it. And also the Doctor flying through space without any kind of spacesuit at all, trying to get that spacesuit doesn't make sense. He would die. Okay, Time Lords aren't immortal, he would die. This is another thing about the whole OP-ness of Time Lords that has happened over the decades. I hate it. I preferred when they were just humans with a longer lifespan who happen to have a slight telepathic ability. Now they're just Superman. I hate it. So this episode I did enjoy. I like the scene with Madge completely playing the harvesters with her tears and then getting the gun out. There's a war on. Yeah, I like that. And I do like Madge in general, to be honest. I think she's a fabulous character. Lily is not too bad. Cyril, however, is a little shit. I'm sorry, who opens their Christmas presents, their joint Christmas presents no less, a day early? Who does that? Who the fuck does that, Cyril? What are you talking, what? Cyril, you little shit. And then he's a little shit again later on when the Doctor says, right, we have to leave. And he's like, no, we're waiting for mummy. Fuck you, Cyril. Die in the acid rain, you little bitch. Yeah, I have no patience for little shits in this show. I just don't. Madge, however, I absolutely love. In this episode, I love her entire attitude throughout the episode. And I really love when she goes a little bit loopy once she's got the little crown on. And she's just like, oh, I have a forest tour ahead. Can't you fly us home, caretaker? But she says it in such a joyous little way. I really like it. I really like Madge. And speaking of that whole flying them home storyline, I've heard some people complain about the whole men being weak, women being strong thing. But it makes complete utter sense because the point of it is that cis women create life inside of them, okay? Women create and hold life and give birth to life. Men physically can't do that. Cis men cannot do that, okay? It's just physically impossible for a cis man to do that. So when the trees are talking about who can hold all this life of an entire planet of forests inside them, it makes sense that a woman would be the strong one to do that. So I don't understand why people complain about that. It makes complete utter sense. Obviously it has sad moments with the dad being dead, the kids don't know and all of that. And then Madge sees the dad in the sky begging not to watch him die. And then the kids are very much, wait, hold on, dad's dead? What? And it's so sad, that ending. And it's beautiful in the end because when the dad does survive by following a blinding light home, somehow not blinding himself, but whatever. There are nonsense parts in this, but I like it anyway. I think it's really sweet and I like how it ends. I think it's beautiful. And as I said previously in this video, this should have been Amy and Rory's last appearance. I think the ending with the Doctor and Amy and Rory is also beautiful and that should have been their last appearance. That should have been it. Okay, just leave it there, let them be happy in modern day and the Doctor can visit them and they can go on a few adventures, but we don't see that. Okay, that should be it. Anyway, for tiering this one, I think I'm going to put it into upgrade in progress. I think it deserves that. And the MVP for the episode is Billis. I just love the fact that she was like, yeah, sir, with all due respect, I'm going to have to lower my weapon here because this is an unarmed woman who is crying. The visual is bad here. I cannot point my gun at this woman. I just like that, okay? We like Billis. And that is it. That is all of Series 6 completely tier listed. And yeah, it's a season. It started off really well, okay? It started off really well, but there are some dodgy episodes in there. However, there are still 4 in NewWho, so I think that even with the dodgy episodes, it's still a really good season, regardless of the fact that the actual finale is quite low down. The rest of it is really great, and I like this season. Looking at the season stats, the most common score for the series was a 4, and the season average was a 3.86. So we have 5 quotes of the season this time, and once again I'll put a poll up later on and you can have your say as to which one you think should be the official quote of the season. The first one comes from A Good Man Goes to War, and I don't think you need the context of this. I'm pretty sure everyone will know this when they hear it. Madame Kavarian says, "The anger of a good man is not a problem. Good men have too many rules." And the Doctor says, "Good men don't need rules. Today is not the day to find out why I have so many." Menacing. I love it. I was tempted to go with the Colonel Runaway speech, but I don't think I could say that nearly as good as Matt Smith does, so I just thought I'd go with this one instead. The next quote also comes from A Good Man Goes to War, and it's once River Song finally shows up and she talks to the Doctor. And she says, "You make them so afraid. When you began all those years ago, sailing off to see the universe, did you ever think you'd become this? The man who could turn an army around at the mention of his name? Doctor, the word for healer and wise man throughout the universe. We get that word from you, you know. But if you carry on the way you are, what might that word come to mean? To the people of the Gamma Forests, the word doctor means mighty warrior. How far you've come. And now they've taken a child, the child of your best friends, and they're going to turn her into a weapon just to bring you down. And all of this, my love, in fear of you." So brushing past the part that doesn't make sense in there about the child becoming a weapon and all that, because as I said earlier, not necessary at all. I really love that quote because it actually speaks to the show itself. It's not just the Doctor in universe, it's the Doctor out of universe as well. The Doctor originally used to just be a traveller. He and Susan and Ian and Barbara, Polly, Ben, Dodo, Stephen, all of them, they were just travelling around having fun. And as the series went on, suddenly the threats became a bit more big, and especially in NewWho, the Doctor is just a warrior. He's just fighting aliens all the time. So I think that this quote really speaks to out of universe as well as in universe, and I just like that. The next quote comes from the God Complex, and I don't think you need context for it really. Pretty sure he just says it randomly to Amy at one point, but Rory says, "Every time the Doctor gets pally with someone, I have this overwhelming urge to notify their next of kin." Quite accurate, really. I feel like he should notify everyone's next of kin. It's like something that Lucy Miller says in the audio series where she says to the Doctor that everyone takes their life in their hands just meeting him. It just kind of reflects that sort of thing, and I like that sentiment because it is very accurate. And the final quote comes from The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe. And it's when Madge and the children have just got to the house and Madge has very angrily told her children to go downstairs because she wants to speak to the Doctor about his absolute nonsense in the house. So Madge has said about how the children's dad is dead and how they don't know yet. And she says, "I don't know why I keep shouting at them." And the Doctor says, "Because every time you see them happy, you remember how sad they're going to be, and it breaks your heart. Because what's the point of them being happy now if they're going to be sad later?" The answer is, of course, because they're going to be sad later. I just love that one because it's a really sweet sentiment, and it's kind of like when I've said in previous videos that you don't know what anyone else is going through, and just let people have the little things. We know that I love my little things. I love my little things. And if some little thing makes someone feel happy, then just let them be happy. Why do we have to ruin things for other people? If I say anything in any of my videos against an episode that people love, I want to make it clear that this is my opinion on the episode, and we're all entitled to our opinions. I'm not saying that anyone else is stupid for liking an episode that I hate. I would never say that sort of thing. You're not stupid for liking something. It's a TV show. You can like whatever episode you like. I don't care. But I don't expect anyone else to say that sort of thing to me either. Let people be happy because you don't know when they're going to be sad. And I realise I've sort of twisted this quote around a lot to make this point because that sort of got away with me there. But you get the gist. You get the gist of what I'm saying. And it's a really sweet quote anyway. Anyway, that is all of the quotes. Let me know in the poll or in the comments which quote you think should be the official quote of the season. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about the tier list and whether you think that I have been way too harsh on closing time, whether you think that I've been way too kind on A Good Man Goes to War. Let me know your thoughts on where you place all the episodes, and I will see you next time for Series 7.